Hi, I'm Bill Osmolsky with the MacIver Institute, and this is your MacIver Newsmakers Bulletin. This week, all eyes are on Arizona's forensic audit of the 2020 election to determine if there was fraud in Maricopa County. But here in Wisconsin, the focus is currently on potential election fraud in the city of Green Bay. That's where an out-of-state Democrat political operative apparently helped the city plan and run the 2020 election. Green Bay City Attorney Vanessa Chavez tried to clear the city of any wrongdoing in a 19-page report she released last week, but she actually might have made things worse. Chavez explained in her report that state law puts the city clerk in charge of elections, and then went on to describe all the ways Mayor Eric Genrich went over her head. The city clerk didn't want central count moved out of City Hall. She did not want to use a new video training system for poll workers, and she did not want a Democrat political operative helping run the city's election. Mayor Genrich overruled her each time. The state assembly is currently investigating the city for potential election law violations. State lawmakers are trying to pass a series of resolutions calling for an Article 5 convention to amend the U.S. Constitution. The amendments would require a balanced budget, limit federal government's power to put mandates on the states, and set term limits for federal officials, including senators and representatives. Congress has amended the U.S. Constitution 33 times. Even though the states are also allowed to amend it through an Article 5 convention, it's never happened before, which makes some people nervous about a runaway convention. But experts say there are controls in place to make sure that does not happen.
The State Assembly of Wisconsin chooses the delegates that will go to that convention. You will then provide any delegate a commission. You will give them their authority. You will tell them what they can and cannot do. If a delegate steps outside of that authority, you will recall that delegate.
State lawmakers aren't just keeping an eye on the federal government, they're also worried about government overreach in Wisconsin state and local government. They just passed bills that would prevent public officials from closing churches over COVID-19 and from making the COVID-19 vaccine mandatory. Unfortunately, Governor Evers vetoed both of those bills. He said that would have tied the hands of public officials who are trying to deal with COVID-19. Meanwhile, COVID-19 levels in Wisconsin remain low. The number of weekly cases has dropped 90% from its peak in mid-November, and only 3.2% of COVID-19 tests are currently coming back positive. When it comes to the vaccine, 42% of Wisconsin residents have had at least one COVID-19 shot. April 22nd was Earth Day, and President Joe Biden announced he wants the U.S. to cut its carbon emissions 50% by 2030 and 100% by the year 2050. Governor Tony Evers already set that goal for Wisconsin 2 years ago. Madison-based Alliant Energy recently announced it plans to retire all its coal-fired power plants by 2025, and the state just approved the company's $1 billion solar energy project. Public Service Commissioners told the Wisconsin State Journal they're optimistic that renewable energy can provide up to 80% of Wisconsin's needs by the year 2040, but they aren't sure about that final 20%. Nationally, critics say for the entire country to go carbon-free, Americans would have to replace all their cars with electric vehicles at an average cost of $55,000 and cut the red meat intake to 4 pounds a year, or 1 hamburger a month. Finally, the Wisconsin Joint Committee on Finance wraps up its public hearings this week on the state budget. Executive sessions will start in May, potentially setting up floor debates in the Assembly and Senate in June, followed by Governor Evers' line-item vetoes and final approval. That'll do it for this week. Be sure to check out www.maciverinstitute.com for all our latest reports, and be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. For the MacIver Institute, I'm Bill Osmolsky, and this has been your MacIver News Bulletin.